Welcome back, fellow book nookers. Glad to have all you guys here. I am going to run through some updates and do my March reading wrap up. So let's get started. If you joined me for my April TBR game, you'll know that I have quite the reading list and I am working diligently on that. But I do have a couple of things that I'm going to shuffle around because I am having a hard time finding the animal perspective book that I'm going to use. It's available on Pango Books, it's available on Thrift Books, but I'm trying not to spend a bunch of money in April on my reading because a lot of the books that I want to read are available through most of the apps that I use, like Libby and Kindle Unlimited and Everand. So I am trying really hard to keep that money, the money that I spend going out, down. And so I'm gonna do a little shuffling. I want to take The Art of Racing in the Rain and move that from my weather related book prompt over to my animal perspective book or non-human perspective book prompt. So that's the first thing that I'm gonna move. And then I got a really great comment from Godston Rules. Thank you very much for your comment to use Onyx Storm. So I am going to end up doing that. And I'm probably going to end up doing Onyx Storm through audiobook because it is available through my library. So that's the update on my TBR game results and just kind of what I'm going to be doing to shuffle them around. But I also had something come up yesterday while I was updating my pile sheet for my April books and just kind of getting everything pre-laid out so that I can just jump in and just plug in the information. My lottery pick ended up being the second in a series, which I didn't know. It doesn't say anything about it being a part of a series. Oh, it does, but I missed it. So I'm going to be taking this back to my library and I'm probably going to chat GPT a possibility for my lottery pick for this month. Just a couple updates as far as what's going on this month. And we're going to jump right in to doing my reviews for last month. And we are going to do it a little bit different this time. I have a much smaller list from March because I kind of lumped in the Lady of Darkness series to my February wrap up, but I am going to revisit it as a series wrap up and just kind of give you an idea of how I rated that one. So if I look over here, I'm just looking at my stats. As you can see, I've got my cord for my iPad plugged in because it was almost dead already today. And then I've got my notes, and I've got for the last book we're going to cover, my notes are in here because it was way too much to fit on one of these. So the first one that I'm going to go over is the Lady of Darkness series, which is by Melissa K. Rorick. And that series, as I said in my previous video, overall was a high scoring series for me. I gave that series a 4.5 out of 5 stars through my pile sheet. And I'm going to break it down over here as far as what it averaged for each of those. Excuse my dog, he's dying for some attention over here. So pile is made up of character, atmosphere, writing, plot, intrigue, logic, and enjoyment. So those are the 7 things that pile references. And pile was built by a booktuber, which I will reference her in my comments. Her list is really, really great for being able to break down your rating system. And I really enjoy using it for my books because it's super easy to give a book 5 stars or 4 stars or whatever, but not put any thought into it. So I have authors that I would automatically give 5 stars just because I love their books, but I need to be a little more critical because I'm learning that there's a lot of writing out there that is just not that great. So as far as that, goes, I am working really hard to refine my rating and my process for that. So over here, you're going to see how I broke down the series and how everything averaged out, and then its final score. But overall, the series, the Lady of Darkness series, I just really enjoyed the series. I thought the way she built her world, and she consecutively just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and the characters got more complex as you went, rather than getting it all thrown at you in the first book. I thought that was really great. The relationships, as they developed, they grew and they became better. The characters each grew in their own way. I really, really did enjoy this book. The style of writing, it wasn't lyrical. There wasn't some fancy prose. It was very well done. So there are areas in the book that end up having, some more beatific references in them and uses of the prose, but I really just feel like it was a really good, straightforward romantasy story. And yes, I definitely believe this falls under romantasy because the relationship in the story is a big part of the plot. And if you didn't have the relationship, I feel like the story would not be as good. Bubba, you're killing me. So as far as the Lady of Darkness series and Melissa K. Rorick, I will be looking for more from her very soon. I want to say, like, as soon as I can, but I have quite the reading list this month. I don't think I'm fitting anything for fun in. My next series that it's not a series. The next book that I have to cover for March is Guild. And this is by Raven Kennedy. And I've read Raven Kennedy before, but this book it was really not good, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of people out there who really like Raven Kennedy's writing, and I like the previous books that I've read by her. But this book just fell flat for me. It was very, very adult, like high spicy rating as far as that goes. So it was very gratuitous with the sex scenes. It's definitely a book where you want to have an idea of trigger warnings ahead of time. I highly recommend, if you're interested in the series, definitely look that up, because it's not for the faint of heart. The men are jerks, the women are intended to be meek, and there's slave elements to this book. So these are rough. This is a rough book. I didn't like the main characters, the FMC's character. She was very naive, because she is put into this cage. She's gilded. She's in this gilded cage. And she's put into this cage at a very young age. I think she's only like 17 or something when she goes in. And she's gold touched by King Midas, but she's human. Like, she can function, she can move, all these things. And she is like obsessed with King Midas. And it's just weird. Like, I just didn't like this book. Yeah. This book, even though I really didn't like this book, there were things about it that ended up getting higher scores. So we'll go through my call pile and we'll break it down. So character development, in my opinion, was a 5. Like, it wasn't that great. There was several characters, they fell really flat. I felt like Midas was just a jerk. The atmosphere, while it was decent, it could have been much better. I felt like we focused too much on the castle and like how it was a cage essentially, and how he separated her from everyone else. So that one, I only gave it a 5. The writing, Raven Kennedy's writing is always pretty good, but because I was so focused in on what I didn't like about the story, it was really hard to focus in on the writing. So she only got a 7 out of 10 for me on that one. The plot, I mean, for me, I know it's the first in the series, but the plot for me was like, meh. So it only got a 5 out of 10. For the intrigue, in this first book, there's really no room for intrigue. I felt like it was really, the intrigue didn't start until about halfway through, about halfway through, quarter of the way through in there. And it really wasn't all that intriguing. Like, it felt really predictable. I really felt like I anticipated a lot of the things that would happen. So for that, the intrigue only got a 6 from me. The logic of the book, how it moves through the story, and everything that you get from start to finish, it's logical. Do you like it? Not necessarily, but it is logical. So I did give that one a 7. My enjoyment, I gave it a 3. Like I said, I really didn't like this book. It fell really flat for me. And I felt like a lot of the elements in it, while understandable, I guess, for the series, if I was to continue on, I didn't get anything out of it. So this book overall ended up with a 3-star, but that's mostly because of the scores it received in areas that, in my opinion, I couldn't give a low score because it had more to do with the writing and less to do with the story. So this did get a 3-star, but I won't be continuing this series. The next book that I have is the first in a series, and that series, hold on. The series itself is called, spoiler alert, and that series is by Olivia Dade. Now, this was the first book in the series. I've never read any of these before, and I really enjoyed this book. It was really sweet and fun. It is only a 3.5 star as far as, what I gave it overall. But it had less to do with the enjoyment than it did have to do with the writing style. So for the characters in this book, I really enjoyed these characters. I thought they were really thought out and well developed. And I gave them a 9. You have Marcus and April. April is a plus-size girl. She is a geologist, and she's very intelligent. But she has a quirky side to her. She's a little bit of a cosplay girl. She's fascinated with this world in the book that is based on a TV series that was based on a book series. Do we see some parallels to Game of Thrones here? So the idea behind it is she loves this television show. Well, she loves this book series, and it was eventually developed into a television show. And she is part of a fan universe where they write fan fiction, and she is a huge player in this, like helped develop this community. And she has a really good friend on this universe who she communicates with all the time. And they essentially kind of reader proof each other's stuff. I can't remember the reference that they make in it, but they make edits to each other's stuff and suggestions. And she's become really good friends with this person. And this person is actually the MMC in the book, who is Marcus, who is actually the actor on the show that she watches based on these books. So there's this really kind of fun little, I don't want to say triangle element, but it is in a sense. And I'll explain that. So they don't know who each other is in their fan universe, right? So they've developed this friendship and this camaraderie over like 2 or 3 years or something like that. And she has gotten a new job, and she's getting ready to move. Well, in her old job, she never felt like she could show her true self. And as part of her transition, she wants to be more true. The new job she's going to has more of a kind of quirky group of people that work there. And so she feels like she can start to be herself more. So as kind of a breakout of her comfort zone moment, she posts herself in a cosplay of the main female character on the show. And she posts it to the actor's profile. No, the show's profile. Anyway, you get my point. She's a plus size girl. And so people start tearing her down, like almost right away. And the actor goes to her defense, and Marcus ends up proposing they go on a date. And the story itself kind of develops there from there. You can kind of see where it goes a little bit. I don't want to give anything away because parts of the plot are really, really good. And there is, of course, the idea that, you know, how could this famous, hot, in shape guy want this plus size girl? So you have that kind of like dichotomy that people see in society, or at least want to cling on to. And their story is so sweet, and it's just their relationship is really super adorable as they get through it, and they're super compatible because of how much they both love this kind of universe. It is a little insta-lovey, so there is that, but it really does just kind of like, it gives you the kind of the happy feelies, you know. And he comes to her rescue in many situations. One situation that he doesn't understand is how her parents can be the way they are with her because she is a plus size girl. Her dad pretty much disowned her, and her mom is constantly trying to get her to go on diets or dress better for her body shape, or, you know, do whatever it is she needs to do to be healthier. And so her mom's a bit of a step forward wife. Her dad, I think, is a lawyer or something along those lines. But, you know, the characters definitely, there are 9 in this book. I think everybody is very well developed, even the side characters. The atmosphere in this book, you're in California, you kind of have a pre-written atmosphere. So I feel like in the sense of that, I feel like we could have gotten more descriptions because not everybody's from California. I felt like I could have used a little bit more description in that sense. For the writing style, I gave it a 7. I thought the writing style was good. There were a couple of parts that I just, like I said, I felt it was a little insta-lovey. I felt like there were some parts that, you know, a little predictable, but overall it was a really good story. It was really sweet. The plot was about a 7. It very, again, predictable, very kind of the standard relationship or the standard romance trope where you have stuff like that. There was really not a lot of intrigue. We were in on the intrigue, so I felt like that the intrigue was pretty low on this one. I felt like it was more around the 5. The logic in this one, about a 7. Of course, you know, there were a couple of things that I felt like just should have been able to be, I don't know. I felt like they could have been dealt with easier or in different ways or in better ways. And my enjoyment of this book was a 7. I really enjoyed it. It was not top tier for me, but it wasn't super low. I thought it was a great read. And I did go on to start reading the second book in this series, but I've put it down. It's a DNF, but it's a soft DNF because I do plan on picking it up again when I have a slightly lighter reading month. So there is that one. My next book is the book that my daughter gave me to read, and that is I Am Legend. And this is by Richard Matheson. This book is, of course, the book that the movie was based on. And the premise of the story is just so good. But I've obviously watched the movie. I've actually watched it a couple of times. And so I had never read the book. And I actually bought the book for her after we had seen the movie for the first time. My daughter, she was a huge Will Smith fan. She loves him. And so this book was her recommendation for me last month. And for this book, my cop pile, my breakdown for this one was characters were a 9. The atmosphere was an 8. The writing was a 10. Absolutely amazing writing. The plot was a 6. I just felt like there was a lot of areas where the plot, it was very predictable. It was very, kind of middle of the road in that sense. The intrigue in this one was a 7 because I knew it was going to be different from the movie, so I had to go in with that, and I had to go in with like no expectations as far as that went. But the intrigue in this one was more brought on by how he went through and he explained certain things about what happened. So that intrigue was there. It just kind of I felt like we could have gotten a little bit more, maybe something a little more exciting happening. The logic in this book was good. It was good. There are parts of the book that I felt like the logic was a little complicated, or the explanations were a little complicated, because he does kind of start delving into scientific information and trying to explain it back, because he's learning it, but then you're getting this internal dialogue of how he's kind of processing it. And then the enjoyment of this book was definitely an 8. I had a hard time with this book getting into it. It is a slow read. You're not getting a ton of excitement in this book. Like, you have a few points that are exciting, but I don't feel like this book was written for that purpose. This book was written to kind of make you think. And I know this is a Stoker's winner, I think is what it's called. So, I mean, this is a very good book. Is it a vampire book? No, it is not a vampire book. And that was what was so shocking for me. It is a lot like the way that The Stand approaches its story, in that there's this sickness that kind of takes over the world. But in The Stand, everybody is dying. Wherein with this book, people are not staying dead, or at least in that sense. So highly recommend, if you haven't read it, you read it. It got 4 stars for me. I thought it was a really exceptional read. Like I said, it's a slower read. If you can stick with it, it's really good. There's a lot of unexpected twists and turns. And if you've seen the movie, try to go in clean. Try to go in with no expectations, because it's vastly different. I mean, point in fact, the guy in the book, he is white. In the movie, he's black. In the movie, it's more modern times. This book is from, I believe, around, like, it's supposed to be like the 70s. I can't remember exactly. I know it's the 70s, but I can't remember the dates exactly. So, I mean, you really need to go in with no expectations. Go in without a predisposed notion of what's going to happen. My last book that I'm going to cover, even though it wasn't my like last book of the, well, no, it wasn't my last book that I started of the month. I'm actually like really close to the end of the sequel for this book, which is The Shadow of the Gods. This book, holy cow. Okay, so the Bloodsworn Saga is really on like all of the big channels, has been talked about, right? It's got Mike's reviews, you've got Daniel Green, you've got The Viking. I mean, there's a ton of people out there who have talked about this series and this author, especially John Gwynne, who is a phenomenal writer. I have nothing bad to say about this series. This is my second 5-star of the year. I have already continued with the second book in the series. I really, really enjoyed this book. You start off, the basis of the story is you are in, and I know I'm going to butcher this, but it's the year 297 of Friederold, I think, which translates to the time between 1030 and 1118 AD in Iceland. And this is a Nordic fantasy, Norse fantasy. The world building in this story is absolutely insane. So we're going to start with my overall, and then we'll kind of delve into each one as I go. So for these characters, I gave them a 9, and you have 3 characters that you're following in the primary book. You have Orca, Varg, and Elvar, right? So Orca is married to Thorkel, and she has a son, Brekka. They live outside of the village of Filur, and they're pretty much just homesteaders. So Thorkel is a former thrall, and Orca, you know she's a warrior, but you don't know, how or why. And then you have Varg, who he is a former slave, or thrall, excuse me, and he has been owned by the same slave master his whole life, and his name was Kolskig. He has killed Kolskig and run, because Kolskig has a son. And Kolskig had promised him his freedom after he got to a certain point, so that he could go and try and figure out who killed his sister, Froya. So you end up with 2 very different styles of characters right from the get-go. And then the last character that we are reading from their point of view is Elvar. And as far as I can tell, Elvar is she's a Viking, right? So she's part of the Battlegrim, and they literally go and they pillage and they take slaves to sell, right? Because in this world, you have humans, mortals, whatever you want to call them, and then you have the tainted, which the tainted are people whose blood has that of the gods. So they are descended of the gods. And so you have, different ones. So like Elvar's character, they're actually hunting a berserker. Okay, sorry about that. My husband came home and he's gotten my dogs riled up, and he's had to walk through. He had to use the bathroom. So my apologies. Elvar is part of the Battlegrim, and they are on the hunt for battle fame. So they are kind of Vikings in the truest sense. And she has worked her way up the ranks of the Battlegrim, and she is kind of almost like second hand to the captain of the ship, who is Sigvat or Agnar. I can't remember which one's his first name. I have to get back into the books because, like I said, I took a break so I could focus on my April TBR. And, there's a really good kind of group of characters. You get a feel for, side characters in the story. And what's really great about how he's built this world is that the characters grow as you further yourself into the story. Obviously, that's pretty much like the best way to write a character. But you don't get thrown all of the characters in one go, right? So, you're killing me, babies. You're killing me. So you're given a glimpse at maybe 2 or 3 characters that are kind of integral to this character. So Elvar, and then you have like a handful, and you have like maybe distant characters to her or to Varg or Orca. So you get to build on your knowledge of not only the world, but the characters slowly. And so as far as the characters went, I gave it a 9. I thought they were really well done. I thought that he did a really good job of slowly introducing them while still giving you information enough to know who they were. For the atmosphere on this book, I gave it a 9. So well described, so very descriptive. Everything from, you know, the weapons to the environment to, you know, the opening scene is Orca and her family, and they're hunting, and they're teaching their son how to hunt. And so he's shooting a bow. And it was just so well done. I felt like you got so much out of that one scene. Like, you got a feel for so much. And the only reason that I gave it a 9 and not a 10 is because there were parts of the story where it was like, I could have used just that little bit of extra information. And so in the sense of the world building, if you don't know anything about Norse mythology or Scandinavian culture or anything like that, I highly recommend that you like look up a couple of things prior to starting this book, because I know that in his second book, he gives you kind of a glossary of terms. He gives you kind of a breakdown of each character's journey so far. So I felt like in that sense, I could have used that. Now, mind you, I did use the audiobook on this one. I did not read this in physical copy. So that may have been in there, but as far as me going in completely blind, I could have used just kind of a little more information. So I was looking things up a lot, but it's not a fault on John Gwynn's part. Like, it's super easy nowadays to just look it up on your phone. So I did do a lot of that while I was going through this book. As far as the writing, it was a 10 out of 10. The writing was some of the best I've seen. I felt like I was completely a part of this story. I was immersed. And every time I would start listening, I didn't want to stop. So for me, not only is that a great sign of the writing, but it's also a great sign of the narrator. The narrator, whoever he had do this book, I thought it was exceptionally well done. For the plot, again, I gave it a 10. You have the overarching plot in this book, but you also have these little subplots, and how they break down into each character's journey is really just really well done. For example, initially in the book, the plot is pretty much about these children going missing, and each character has their own plot in a sense too, because it builds up to this overarching plot at the end, by the end of the book, but each character kind of has their own journey they're on. And so that really felt intriguing to me. It kept me in the story because it was like, okay, what's going on with Orca? Or wait a minute, I want to know what's going on with Varg. So the plot in this book really kept me in the story. And I thought the way he did it and the way he found these like perfect breakpoints to go from one character to another, to where you wanted to get through that next chapter. You wanted to get through that next bit so that you could get back to the next character. But then once you got back to the next character, you wanted to stay with the other character. So that was really just, I really loved that about this story. You build on who you know and how you know them as you go, and just very good, very good. There's some very interesting twists that I did not see coming, and that's in book 1. So I can only imagine what's coming in book 2 and 3. For the intrigue, I gave it a 9 because, again, there were a couple of spots where I kind of felt it was a little bit obvious, but at the same time, there was like a tiny wrench thrown in that just made me go, what? Wait a minute. So the intrigue in this is really good, and I gave it a 9. The logic for me, I gave a 7. Now this is, of course, my lowest on this entire rating scale for him, but for me, the logic was a little bit convoluted at times, because there are things that Obviously, this is a magical world, so you can't explain everything. But there were a few things that occur in the story that left me going, how is that happening? Or how, how does that work? One of the primary things that kind of left me going, how does that work, and why? And so I really wanted to know why. And so again, magic systems, things like that. So there are things that are kind of left unexplained. Now, whether or not that stuff is going to continue to get explained as we go further into the series, I don't know. So the logic may end up going up for the next book or the book after that. So I really did enjoy a lot of that part. I am looking forward to finishing book 2. It's hard to give details about the books without giving away parts of book 2, which I don't want to do, because book 2 is, if I can get through my reading list for April, book 2 is going to be my freebie that I have coming from my TBR game for April, because I really want to get back to it. And then, of course, my enjoyment of this book was a 10 out of 10. Bar none. I absolutely enjoyed this book from start to finish. Like I said, I really found myself not wanting to take my headphones off. And of course, I'm a mom, so I have carpool, I have work delivery as far as getting my daughter to and from. And she works 30 miles away. So or not 30 miles away, 30 minutes away. So I am gone a lot. And then of course I have to pick up and drop off my son every day for school. And I have to, of course, take care of my house. So I have a lot of time to listen, but at the same time, I'm not going to make my family suffer through me listening to an audiobook in the car. So I try to remember to take my headphones, but then I have a hard time wanting to take them out when I need to stop reading. So that is part of my downfall when it comes to audiobooks. And I love audiobooks, especially when I can find a really good narrator. And so it's really tough for me to pull the plug on my headphones. So if you've made it this far and you don't feel like leaving a comment, but you still want to let me know you are here, please leave a headphones emoji down below. And I am going to be back, hopefully again before the end of the month. Please like and subscribe. I look forward to being back with you guys again very soon. All right. Have a great day, and thanks for joining me in my nook.